Welcome to LexMedia's Coffee with the Candidates. I'm Colleen Smith, and I'm joined today by Jim Shaw. Jim, thank you for joining me today at the Coffee with the Candidates.
I'm happy to be here with you today, Colleen, the second time we're doing this. And I remember talking with folks afterwards. People were quite pleased. Felt that it was a way to really become informed before the election. So
get to know
glad
the
we can do
candidates.
this. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, today we are going to be joined by the candidates that are running for Selectmen and School Committee. This is an important year as we are looking for a new superintendent. We're addressing overcrowding issues in the schools, tax rates, and so much more. We have an important election happening on November 4th. We hope you enjoy meeting the candidates in this forum and that you will get out and vote.
We're here with candidate Bob Rotberg, who's running for Selectman here in Lexington and has been a long-time fixture in Lexington politics. So I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit why you're running for Selectman, but before I do that, I just want to run down a little bit of a list of background.
Pretty impressive background.
Yeah, the CV, as they say, right? Town meeting member since 1973.
Right.
You've served on the school committee 1974 to 1977.
Right.
You're president emeritus of the World Peace Foundation and a former college president at Lafayette College.
Right.
And you currently serve on the school advisory committee.
Right.
And you were a Clinton appointee. President Clinton appointed you to the National Endowment for Humanities.
Right.
And a former faculty member at both, a government professor at Harvard and MIT.
Right.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being here. So with
My
that,
pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about why, after all the years of service, when most people are thinking about all that time that they've served, it's time to back out. You're saying, I want to serve more and in a greater capacity.
Yes, Lexington's at an inflection point. We've had very good selectmen recently. Deb Morger's resignation meant that someone strong had to run. I'm that strong person who has proven executive experience that can come to the board at a time when we have very serious issues ahead of us, both school enrollment, safety facilities, and question of inclusion of newcomers in town. So we have major issues, and I think it's time for someone with a lot of experience to join the board.
And I think one of the things that you kind of just touched upon is, you know, your value of your proven experience in so many different aspects. What strategies do you think that will bring to your role as selectman in the next 3 to 5 years in particular, where we do have so many important issues that we're facing?
Right. Well, what academics and executives do is ask tough questions at the right time. Mm-hmm. A new selectman is, for a few years at least, should be very quiet and listen, but also ask hard questions. I think I can do that and bring the experience of the greater world and mediation and a negotiation across the globe to Lexington. I've also taught and written on governance, so governance is close to my heart.
Mm-hmm. And in speaking about working closely, we do have so many issues happening right now with the search for the new superintendent,
right,
and the overcrowding happening at schools and forecasting with numbers as we move forward. How do you suggest the selectmen can work closely with the school committee to address these important issues?
Well, fortunately, I was a school committee person, and if elected selectman, I will be the only selectman that had school committee experience. So, I can bring my passion for the schools, my leadership over many years in school issues to the board, and the selectmen and the school committee now work together so well that we can work together to harness the talents of both boards and other committees and so on to dealing with this very complicated school enrollment issue which we have now. They're forecasting 675 extra students between now and 2019. My guess is that it's going to be more than that and going to continue for many years. So we will have to use modular classrooms, open Old Harrington, maybe enlarge Hastings, and do other things where the selectmen don't have primary responsibility, but certainly can help.
Well, there are diverse issues that'll confront the next Board of Selectmen, including the new member who joins, major capital improvement campaigns. We're looking at a lot of major capital improvement activity right now with the new community center, with the building that, the reconstruction that's going on with Cary Hall. And there's been some concern that public safety buildings and capital improvements for public safety have been keep getting pushed to the back burner. So with the I call it a conflict. There's only so much money available. We're looking at forecasting and adding 675 students. At what point do we say to public safety, the time is yours, the time is now to move forward with these types of public safety improvements, including up to the possibility of land taking by eminent domain if we have to, if we don't have the kind of land that we need. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and at the end maybe you can say, would you support the concept of taking land by eminent domain if necessary for a new fire station?
I'm committed to a new fire station and a new police station very soon. We've got to manage the various priorities, but the infrastructural improvements are necessary to keep Lexington's reputation and quality high. And fortunately, we're in such a low interest environment that this is the moment to take advantage of Lexington's enviable bond rating and to bond the police station, the fire station, and the schools as quickly as we can, so as to get that behind us before the interest rate in environment changes, as it will. Now, how to do that and keep a stable tax rate? Fortunately, we have reserves, which we built up over a long time. We also have the opportunity to bond long-term, 30 years or longer, and to do that in a way which won't impact the taxpayer all that much. Now, that's a nice thing to say, but I think it's actually possible, and as someone who managed university and college budgets, foundation budgets, and started life as a budget examiner in the U.S. Bureau of the Budget, I think I can bring some experience to bear. And I think we can afford that. As to the land taking, I don't know enough about that yet, Jim, but it's certainly something that's should be feasible and on target.
In other words, if necessary, it's not off the table. You would be open-minded, at least able to look at it to do what's necessary? I'm not trying to box you in.
No. When I'm selectman, I'll be open-minded to everything.
Right.
And ask the right questions and say, hey, that's a good idea, let's explore it. And we need to explore new ideas. And one of the things I pride myself in is being innovative. That's what I try to do as a college president. And academics are not of much use to anybody, but they do ask questions. And that's what I will do.
Well, Bob, you talked about going out on the campaign trail, meeting with constituents, and talking about the sustainability of a lot of these capital projects, and also your green objectives. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, fortunately, Lexington is the second most sustainable town in the Commonwealth, according to the Sustainable Lexington volunteer group, which reported to the selectmen recently that Lexington by December will be contributing 763 megawatts to the electricity supply of the Commonwealth. Now that's fabulous. We've put solar installations on top of many of the town buildings. Not every building can bear the weight, but we've done that. And the new Estherbrook is LEED certified and very, very passive and useful. Many of the town buildings, many of the town residences are now solarized, and the chairman of the board of a selectman has a solar installation on his own house. So we're doing well. Now we need to do better. We need to think about where we get our power. Is it sustainable? We need to begin thinking at least about a local electricity supply company. That's been talked about. It's probably going to be very difficult to do over the next decade because it takes a vote of the state legislature to let us do it. But clearly these are all initiatives that we should focus on. Also, possibly our recycling, which was a bitter debate in the 90s. I don't want to go back to that debate, but it's something we should think about.
With regard to economic development,
Right.
over the past few years, there's been initiatives to increase the FAR, the floor area ratio along Hartwell Avenue. It's available to the building owners down there who want to take advantage of it. I know there are sidewalk improvements going on. There may be some expansion being proposed for Hayden Avenue. Where do you stand on that? I mean, how, in terms of being more proactive in communicating with building owners to actually take advantage of all the hard work that was done by the town and the Chamber of Commerce to increase that FAR. I understand there may be a request coming from a current building owner down on Hayden Avenue about expanding a little bit down there. How do you feel about the expansion, and what do you think about the whole idea of the FAR and creating opportunities for commercial tax growth?
Oh, I think we should have as much commercial tax growth in our commercial zones as we possibly can. 20 years ago, the commercial owners were contributing 20% to our tax base. They're now contributing 13%. So we need to bring that back up from 13 towards 20. How to do that is to keep our services and our schools up, because that's what attract businesses, and keep our transportation pretty clear. Hayden Avenue would be a good place to have additional corporate endeavors, particularly in the biosciences, because Lexington is gaining a good reputation there. And on Hartwell, we should certainly take advantage of the changes that have been made in the FAR and the sidewalk improvements and the jug handle improvements and so on. So all those things are important, and I would approach each case on a case-by-case basis and look at them, but with an open mind again. And then the hope is that we can make our commercial zones do more than they're doing now. But it also means keeping a viable center. And that's another issue, but we have to deal, as we've tried to do periodically since 1966, with parking.
I'm glad that was one of my next questions.
Question.
Important thing, there are 3,300 spaces within a quarter mile of the depot. 700 are underused, so the parking committee recommends doing something about that. There's new smart meters coming in, and the new thing, which has just been enacted by the selectmen, is giving 30 minutes free parking around the depot. All that's very smart. I think we can continue to do smart things following up the recent traffic study and make the center a much more viable place.
Some of the recommendations, do they include like tiered parking? In other words, a little bit more in the meters, closer to, a little less further out?
I think
that's what I've heard. I haven't.
No, I
actually seen
think that's there, but the biggest thing is being able to pay with credit cards. And that's going to mean you don't have to fish for the small change. And I think tiered parking, there's also going to be a reconfiguration in the lot off Muzzy Street, next to the library. There's going to be a rejigging of how they're painted, which will give us a few more spaces. And the spaces up along Mass Avenue, Forest Street and Parker Street, will be rearranged in such a way that there'll be a few more spaces. So I think we can, because the spaces close to the depot are full all the time. The spaces, the other 700 spaces farther out, are not. So it's a question of where the employees park all day and where visitors come for 30 minutes and so on. All kinds of complicated things, but an important issue, which I think this has been possibly the 10th study, but I think this one will show some payoff.
Well, Bob, you talked about in some of your campaign literature creating a sense of greater inclusivity in the town and helping stakeholders feel a valued part of the community. How would you recommend as a selectman accomplishing that?
we need to bring into Lexington fully the parents of 33% of the school children who are newcomers. They're a very interesting new demographic in Lexington. Lexington has always welcomed people from elsewhere. This new group has come for the schools and for town services. We must keep our services high and therefore build the school facilities necessary. The most important thing a selectman can do would be to encourage some of the newcomers to join committees and serve in town meeting, run for selectmen, do various things which will give them a greater stake in the town. I've been approached by many people from the new groups to do that, and I think that's perfectly feasible. It means helping the moderator and the town manager, who have appointments as well, to keep their eyes open and encourage people to come in. But I think the most important thing a new selectman can do, and the selectmen in general can do, is to be welcoming to a group, a new group, and members of the group who want to join into Lexington and be inclusive. As a college president, I did this full time, so I'll continue to do it.
And then I know we're sort of coming close to our end point. I just wanted to ask you about, the idea of working on a board. Sometimes it's not always harmonious. Sometimes people can be difficult to work with. Do you look forward? Are you someone who can work well with others? You can sort of work shoulder to shoulder?
Yes, I'm very collegial, but I've spent a life as a faculty member trying to be collegial, but also as a university vice president at Tufts and as a college president at Lafayette. The big part of my job was listening,
right.
And the next big part of my job was to bring people together and build coalitions. So I did that as part of my professional life, executive life. I also do it professionally as a negotiator and a mediator, and I've ran a conflict resolution center at Harvard. So it's full-time doing what is necessary to build a coalition, and I think I can join the existing coalitions on the board, which are coalitions of all the members,
right.
And work with school committee as well as the selectmen and the town manager to make this an even better town than it is.
Right. And with all your experience, you're helping develop nations in Africa and other places in the world, coming here and applying that experience to Lexington should come as second nature, right?
Right, and Lexington's also in much better shape than some of the nations I deal with. Lexington's a well-run town, and we need to keep it well-run for the next 100 years.
Excellent. Well, Bob, it was very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Thank
you.
you so much
Nice
for
to
sitting
meet you.
down and
Pleasure.
having coffee with us. We enjoyed meeting you. We wish you the best of luck on November 4th.
Thank you. Just tell everyone to vote early.